So we have, let's take a look at, where do you want to start? Euro, USD?
I think Euro. I think that's the elephant in the room here for sure.
It sure is. And we have, as you had highlighted to me, great call. What do we have? We have a binary event coming up today.
Yes, we have the ECB rate cut decision coming up in just a little bit, I think around 7:15. And so that'll be a pretty big deal for the euro. I think we're already seeing it going down a little bit with anticipation of a potential rate cut. I think it's 25 bips was what they were saying.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. So we'll see how that affects it. I did also read online, I thought this was pretty interesting. Even if the euro were to weaken, on a more positive note, this could potentially increase some exports from the euro area. So we could see an uptick on a positive note, but we'll just have to see.
And I think that was a perfect summary of, I want the number because there'll be action off of it, whether or not they cut the expected 25. And that's the survey of 30, 40 economists. God bless them. They've got to try to make a guess on this. They're looking to cut 25 basis points. Now, just like our Fed announcement at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, at 1:30, we always have Chairman Powell come on and then kind of add some color to it. And he'll either walk back expectations or lay out a little groundwork and kind of seed the ground. Same thing here, 7:15, the announcement's made about a change in European interest rates. At 7:45, Christine Lagarde, who's the equivalent of the Jerome Powell in the European Central Bank, will have a press conference at 7:45 and give a little bit of guidance. Will there be more? Will there be less? Will they wait and see? Market will react to that too. So we'll get, I love is we get 2 bites at the volatility apple. Do I know what she's going to say? I wouldn't even venture. And there's a whole sea of again, I would usually use the term chuckleheads, but of analysts who will try to parse what her words are. I don't care. What I care about is what the market does. We're at an interesting inflection point. Now, we traded, again, I
do think, too, there's always just people are going to spin things as negatively or as positively as they want to. And so no matter what happens, I think we can only really wait until the decision is out, you know.
That's it. And so if they don't cut, the euro probably, and again, the euro probably will rally. If they cut and they're aggressive saying that they're going to have more cuts in place because inflation is low, the euro may soften a little bit. And again, remember, the euro against the dollar. So euro USD. So if they move the 25 as expected and give kind of a middle of the road statement, we'll get a little flickering. But what's interesting is we're ending up at a price point right now, 108.66. We're right around kind of a little bit of, we're the lower end of, yesterday we finally made it through 109, and we traded, that had kind of been our, take a look at the daily, 109 had kind of been that congestion point there. So, yeah.
We've also got the dollar strength in there, too, which I think is important.
And you're absolutely right. And this actually turns out 108.90 is the 200-day moving average. If you're a technician, it's something you look at.
Yeah.
Now, I look at it, and it's funny. They're like, Pete, you talk about you never use technicals. And as a bank trader, every bank trader that I worked with and learned from looked at them, just because every bank trader they learned from and worked with looked at them. So are they self-fulfilling prophecies? They're areas of interest. Past that, nothing. So we're at this technical inflection point. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a number, 108.90. But either side of that, we could see some price action. So it's kind of, we've sold off 300 points. I think in anticipation that this cut is coming and they're going to be a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah.
So we'll see what the follow-through is. Who's tested right now? The longs are tested a little bit in the market. Anybody who's bought this rally is sitting in kind of a less than comfortable position. So again, how do we set the table for this?
Yeah.
Well, we're not going to try to guess what they're going to do because that's going to cloud our judgment. We're going to set realistic expectations around where do I want to find some interest. And it's as simple as you can do it any number of ways. If you want to be a contrarian, you'd probably take, and we can look at something, and we'll do this next time together, is something called average true range. It's basically looking at what has the range been for a period of time. It's another way of looking at a one standard deviation move, which we do a lot of statistically. So we can look at that. But I think that's going to come in around 65 or 70 pips. So either side of where we are, if it gets to that level, maybe I'm interested in the contrarian play. If it continues to the downside and you're a momentum trader, maybe you want to be short. That's your call. But the whole opportunity is here. Come up with a game plan. kind of define areas of interest. And you know what? Half the time, the market won't get to those areas. And you take your packaged up idea, the market didn't cooperate, you toss it away, but you have a defined game plan going into it. And it's not trying to guess what they're going to do. It's what does the tape action afford you in terms of an opportunity. So here is, again, we get this in euro. We'll get this in yen. Yen's a little tougher because you got to be up at 11 o'clock at night to trade the central bank number. So that makes it a little bit challenging. The Aussie is a little bit more cooperative. Aussie, again, they had...
Lots of movement.
Lots of movement. Aussie, again, off its highs, not quite as much as some of the other currencies. But here's a question, and I'm curious your thoughts. And this is just you being new to the process. Something country-specific like this ECB announcement. Do you think every other currency follows in the same way?
I think it depends. Maybe with related to things like exports. So if they trade with each other, then I'm sure that would have a huge effect. So I could see that. Maybe any type of political tension in there that could also have an effect for sure. I know with the missile attacks the other week, that definitely set things off in between countries, specifically Canada and the US, I believe, with oil. But I think those two things are a part of it. So that, I guess that's what I would say. Yeah.
Right. And you're absolutely right. We won't see all the other currencies move to the same degree as Euro USD. Or, we can look at Euro Yen. We'll see that move because it will have an effect on one leg of that currency pair, the euro against the yen. And all this is we talk about replacing that one rail Tesla dollar. This is just taking out the dollar component and looking at the relative value of two different currencies.
Which is easier said than done. I feel like it's always, but the dollar. But,
It is, but one of the things we want to do is, as traders, we want to be product indifferent. It's a mantra we've always talked about. We want to adopt product. We want to continue to expand our product knowledge and comfort level. We want to do that in a measured manner, mindful way that we don't take too big a bite of something by mistake and get uncomfortable with it. So, sure, we're removing the dollar component. It's two different currencies, but if you look at this move here, this downstroke in euro yen was far bigger on a percentage basis than the move in just euro US. So if you're a guy who says, I want stuff to move 1%, and I'm interested in that extreme, then you should be indifferent as to moving into a dollar-based cross or a non-dollar-based cross. The great thing is the platform does all the work for you. It translates it all into what is your margin in dollars, what is your P&L, and makes it very simple and straightforward. So that's great. You can learn more about all this at tastyfx.com. Very, very straightforward. And again, there's a demo environment. You can learn. You can open a demo account to start to play around with this a little bit. You can always open and fund and trade small. That's one way to learn. Some people learn differently in demo than they do live.
And from a new trader's perspective too, I've had a great experience with that also. And I think at the end of the day, me being here, whether, no matter how old you are, how much experience you've had, just to provide that authenticity and relatability of someone who's navigating this very new thing. It's so easy to look at other people and think they know exactly what they're talking about and I don't know how I'm ever going to get there. But it really is more doable than you think. And it's baby steps for sure.
You're spot on. And, I've been doing this for 42 years. And trust me, every day, I've seen and trained and worked with so many traders. The guys who think they've figured it out get themselves into trouble. You
stay humble.
Yes, that's exactly the word I was going to use. It's so important in the exercise is that we want to be tacticians. We want to be strategic. We want to find edge where we can, and we want to stay humble. And that means we're mindful that our ideas don't always align with the markets. And the markets are the true source of truth. I've heard so many guys say, well, this price is just wrong. It's like,
it's there.
Exactly.
It's there.
Price is perfectly priced. It incorporates every piece of news, every piece of thought, every piece of context. The price is right. Sometimes our ideas are misaligned or mistimed, and that's where we tweak and adjust. But keeping that humbleness is an important part of the exercise. But we're going to go through and take a look at Canada. Again, a lot of strength coming out of this dollar Canada move, big move to the upside, strengthening the dollar over the Canadian dollar. Oil softening up, not helping a little bit, but we've seen a little bit of the zeal come off that. What we've seen is a little bit of the run in all these pairs. Aussie find a little bit of footing. Dollar Canada come off a little bit. We've mentioned Kiwi, and we can go down and look at New Zealand dollar. Kiwi is the slang term. We'll start getting into Glenn's channel and some of his...
that was hilarious.
Some of his other stuff. But New Zealand finding a little bit of bottom here. But these have been pretty dramatic moves. Now, the interesting part is New Zealand's back into the core end of the middle of its range and the bottom end of kind of a longer term trading range, where we see Euro kind of coming back into the middle of the range, but still outperforms. That just tells me that the Euro has outperformed the New Zealand dollar a little bit. So if I'm looking at what has performed weakest against the dollar, it's been the New Zealand dollar. They've been cutting the most aggressively, talked about cutting. So the dynamic changing of the rates, and it is as much about trajectory as it is the actual rate difference. So it is the idea of, will they continue to cut or not? That will play through in a little bit of the chit chat that we get post 7:15 at 7:45 for the euro. So we'll see a secondary move on that. Be mindful of that, plan accordingly, and just take what the market gives you. So that would be really where you'd want to look. Dollar yen touched 150. We got that print up here. We haven't come off much into that. So this will be an interesting one to see too. Probably we're not going to get any movement in dollar yen off of the ECB announcement, but we will as U.S. rates move this morning. We have
the election coming up too, perhaps.
We do. And economic calendar we can take really quickly. We've got a great economic calendar. So here again, interest rate decision at 7:15. As we talked about, 7:45, the press conference. And then in the U.S., we start rolling into numbers, industrial production, retail sales in the U.S. So we have some numbers that are going to both affect our interest rate markets and our dollar-based currency markets. So today should be kind of some action-packed events that, again, give us some tape action and some tradable opportunities.